Welcome to our virtual open house. My name is Rihanna Vilmer and I work in admissions.
Hi, I'm Charlene Ashe, and I am in the Lebanon Academic Center here working and trying to help as many students as possible to get these late start classes filled up.
Hi, my name is Steve Miceli. I'm an adjunct instructor at River Valley. We will be in this class filming the Vietnam War, the Hollywood Chronicles. We'll be looking at a number of intersectional perspectives in the Vietnam War era. What we'll be doing is looking at the way films were developed in about a 10 to 15 year period from the late 1970s through almost 1990, and how the filmmakers adapted their vision of the Vietnam War to American society. So there will be a film perspective to it, and then there will be a reality historical perspective to the course. So we'll be looking at what was actually happening in the Vietnam War, how the filmmakers perceived that, and then what society was going through at the time in the 1980s generally, and their perspective of the war. So there will be kind of like a intersection of all those perspectives. We will look at a number of popular videos at the time when they came out, including Apocalypse Now, which was a apocalypse in the making. The creators of the film had a difficult time. It comes through in the film how difficult it was. It's the story of an Army officer serving in Vietnam who was supposed to assassinate a rogue Army officer who set up his own fiefdom in Vietnam. We'll also look at Platoon, and a lot of these films show how conflicted the soldiers in the war were, but also how conflicted American society was about the war. There's a lot of introspection about good and evil, and if it's possible to draw a line between the two. So the course looks at obviously the content of the film, but also we try to get into a little bit deeper meaning of some of the films. Full Metal Jacket is a similar film that looks at the difficulties that the soldiers faced, particularly understanding the morality of war, the conflict within fighting a war. This is also a representation, Casualties of War, about a soldier trying to keep his morality in the midst of chaos and what he considers to be an evil movement within the war. So he finds himself, as do other soldiers, combating the demons within himself and what he sees other people experiencing as well. I should say most of the films that we watch are not feel-good films. Good Morning Vietnam is the closest thing that comes to a feel-good film. It is a comedy, but even in this, and it's also based on a true story. There are a couple of movies that we see that are based on a true story. This is based on a true story of a comedic DJ who goes into Vietnam and tries, as this says, to shake things up. But what he finds is that, again, there is a conflict that emerges when he discovers that one of his very best friends is working for the enemy. And his friend considers himself a patriot, and he's fighting against the United States. So there's a continual reevaluation of the soldiers' lives as they struggle through this period. And as we get into the realities of the war, the actual history, and we find that the United States itself as a society, particularly people who were coming of age in the 1980s, and they were discovering that the United States lost a war. That was a difficult psychological position to have. And the filmmakers struggle with this. There are a number of films that are the genre of returning veterans that we'll talk about, and the difficulty soldiers had with reemerging in American society, and how American society in general had difficulty accepting soldiers back into society. So there are a number of films, this one Coming Home, that deals with that. It's a wounded veteran story who loses his use of his legs, and then there's a love story. There's oftentimes love stories involved in these films. This is a classic World War II film that's actually set in Vietnam. And so we use the Green Berets as kind of a foil to gauge how the 1970s and 1980s were different types of war films in relation to World War II films. So the Green Berets is a classic good guy, bad guy. It's very clear cut who is the good guy, who is the bad guy. This is the only really popular film that comes out of the Vietnam genre that has such clear distinctions in right and wrong. Born on the 4th of July is another true story that we'll look at. It's based on a biography of a soldier who was also wounded, disillusioned. Its story arc is one of great expectation, a dramatic fall, questioning faith, questioning humanity, questioning the country, and then a reemergence, a rebirth as someone different. And I think the film that we end up with, The Deer Hunter, is encapsulates all the different angles that the war films consider. It's a home front film, it's a war film, it's a tragic film of lost souls who never return mentally from the war. These films, when taken together, offered the American public a sense, a catharsis. It's a transition through which the American society had to travel to accept what had happened in the Vietnam conflict, in Vietnam as well as in society as a whole. And so the films kind of are a place for Americans to discuss a multitude of different aspects of life, of American society, of war, of morality. And so we'll continue that.
So with the late start courses, I think that, as Rihanna said, it's very important to keep in mind that you're getting the same number of credits and the same amount of content. So what ends up usually happening is that the workload each week is slightly heavier than it would be in a 16-week course. And usually instructors will be very clear about how that workload is going to be parceled out and things like that. So it's a great opportunity if you were not quite ready to take a course at the beginning of the term, or if you've already enrolled in some courses and you've decided you have a little more room in your schedule. I think that can sometimes, it's a nice opportunity to have. As far as benefits go, I think that sometimes the 12-week format works slightly better for people as far as scheduling is concerned. I know that especially due to our sort of pandemic model, where we're really pushing innovative distance learning formats, things are very flexible. So it's very, we have a lot of online courses. I know that Steve's course is fully online, my course is fully online. So it's really easy to sort of get signed up and take the course from anywhere on your schedule. I also really like the late start model because it gives you a few weeks to settle into the semester. before you decide whether or not you want to add another class. Or maybe, you know, at the beginning of the semester, you simply weren't ready to enroll yet. And I like that we have the opportunity a little later in the term as well to get people enrolled, and we have a variety of offerings. The late start course that I am teaching, which is world literature. It is a 3-credit course. It will be held asynchronously online. However, I am offering an optional Zoom meeting for people that want to drop in and chat about the course during the week, but that's not required. So you can do the course completely asynchronously online. It is an English course that will fulfill any English requirements that you might have that are non-specific. If you have an English Gen Ed requirement, this course would be a great fit for that. So the theme of my course is going to be banned books. I want to kind of narrow the focus a little bit because world literature is such a broad category. There's so many different directions you could go into. I think that banned books are particularly interesting because I find that censorship can tell us a lot about the relationship between literature and society. I think that if we look at why a book was censored at a given time and in a given place, it can tell us a little bit about how books are significant in our world. And that's going to be a big theme of this particular course. A big part of my focus is going to be to contextualize the literature that we look at. So we're going to consider not only why the books and other pieces of literature we're working with were banned in the first place, but we're also going to look at authors were of these books and what their backgrounds are. We're going to consider historical backgrounds. When were these books produced? Where were they produced? And what cultures are they coming out of? I think that understanding those connections really helps us put literature into a larger framework. I think that that's one of the challenges that people sometimes run into with the study of literature is that they enjoy reading or they enjoy, you know, various types of literature, but they're not really sure why it matters beyond that. And literature is so much more than just entertainment and art for art's sake. So this course will really, we're certainly going to enjoy the texts we're looking at, but we're also going to dig in and talk about their significance, why they matter. Novels, plays, poetry, so we'll cover a wide variety of genres. And we're also going to look at graphic novels as a sort of side genre of the novel format. So we're going to be looking at a lot of different types of literature, and we're going to cover 3 different centuries, and we're going to cover a wide variety of countries, including France, Russia, Iran, Nigeria, and the United States. So it should be an exciting ride as we sort of cover all of that ground. So other things to keep in mind in terms of content is that as we contextualize, we're also going to learn how to study literature. We're going to talk about what it means to approach literature with the purpose of analyzing and interpreting. We're really going to talk about some strategies that we can use to approach literature from a critical thinking standpoint. So I'm going to be introducing some really basic elements of literary theory, and we're going to explore a few different literary theories and apply them to our pieces of literature. And I like to think of literary theories as lenses that you can put over a piece of literature and it brings certain things into focus. For example, one of the literary theories we're going to cover is feminist criticism. And feminist literary theory, as you might expect, is focused on feminist ideology. So it asks people to think about how a certain novel or play or movie represents gender and power dynamics and social systems that relate to gender and things like that. So when you work with different kinds of literary theories, it allows you to narrow your focus so you're not overwhelmed by all the possibilities of interpreting that text. So that will be one of the tools that we'll be using, and we'll be exploring a couple of different types of theories. Let's see. As far as the logistics go, I know that sometimes people are concerned about the cost of a literature course because there are a lot of different books to work with, a lot of different source materials. The good news is that there are only two required books to purchase for this course. Two novels. One is a graphic novel and one is Graceland by Chris Abani. And both of those very affordable. All of the other texts we'll be working with are available digitally on Canvas. So students will have the option to purchase hard copies of those texts if they would like, but they will have digital copies available for free. In addition, we'll have lots of other videos, essays, articles, and things like that to provide context and background, and those will be available for free via Canvas. So that is the World Literature course in a nutshell.
Thanks,
So
Charlene and Rihanna.
Well, I would also like to thank everyone for joining us. Good night.
Good night.
Night.